So we have finished with the synchronous part, and we'll start the asynchronous part. And indeed, if we consider an asynchronous system, we fall into the impossibility result of FLP that we have just seen in the morning. Okay, there's no deterministic solution to consensus in asynchronous systems. So if it does not exist in the crash model, so it does. For sure, it does not exist for the Byzantine consensus. So I will, as we do not have the possibility to have, this is what I said just after, we have three properties: validity, agreement, and termination. Impossibility means that we cannot have all of these three properties. We need to lose at least one. And if you remember, what Leslie Lamport said this morning is that with Paxos, you will preserve the two first, and what you're going to do is to lose the third. What I mean by you lost it, it means that you are not sure that you always terminate. But what he says is that in many situations, you will terminate. But you cannot guarantee that you will for sure terminate. And this is what I call a safe protocol. What is a safe protocol? It's a protocol that preserves validity and agreement. This means that if we decide valid value. If we decide, we all decide the same value. If it's only like this, perhaps we'll never decide. What we hope is that most of the times we will decide. So, and you have an exercise on this. And then, because I saw the program, I saw that Leslie will present Paxos. Paxos is what I call an asymmetric protocol. You have a leader, you elect a leader, and the leader will make the order, will give hints for the voters. I want you to vote for this, I want you to vote for this. Okay? And the consequence is that in a real system, if faults are rare, and if the system is quite synchronous, you obtain very efficient protocols. Like Paxos, because you elect a leader, and as long as it is not suspected, as long as it behaves correctly and the time delays are correct, it's very fast because it is the leader that proposes a value to decide in a ballot, and then the acceptors vote, and that's it. Okay? And even the number of messages is linear with the number of processes because it is asymmetric. There's a leader, from the leader to the acceptors, and then from the acceptors to the leader, from the leader to the acceptors. Okay? It is linear. Okay? So it is very efficient. Here, but we assume that the delays are quite acceptable. Here, so I will not talk about this because you had a presentation on it. I will insist on symmetric solutions. In symmetric solutions, all the processes play the same role. Okay? In those situations, indeed, either the system is synchronous and we can play all the same role, and if we want to have a solution that works and that is symmetric, generally we use randomization. This is what we are going to see mainly. This is what I have just said. So we can say that Paxos falls into this second part because if you want that your Paxos protocols works for sure, you need to have eventual timing assumptions, and we fall into the partial synchrony. So, as in the first part, I will start with simple protocols for the crash model. This is a Benor-like protocol for t smaller than over 2. Indeed, you can see that it is quite close to, in spirit, it's the same basis for all asynchronous protocols. They are quorum-based. We use quorums. If you want safety in asynchronous systems with faults, if you want safety, you are obliged to consider quorums. Without quorums, you cannot guarantee safety if you have failures and asynchrony. Is it clear? I think it's very important. So this kind of what we call Benor-like algorithms, they are based on quorums. And the important property of quorums are the intersection properties. We are sure that any two quorums do intersect in at least the identity of one correct process at least. And this will ensure the safety. So this protocol is for crash failures. And we'll see later that t needs to be smaller than n over 2. There's proof that because of these quorums, to have quorums that intersect, if you want to be symmetric, it is t smaller than n over 2 is necessary if you do not have other properties on the system. So the protocol consists of a series of rounds. It's exactly the same as in Paxos or as in the synchronous protocols we saw just before. Except that for the synchronous protocol, we say that we can stop after t plus 1 rounds. We can stop after f plus 2 rounds and so on. But here, as we are not sure to terminate, we cannot stop within a given number of rounds. We'll execute until we eventually, we possibly decide, but it's not guaranteed. And here, if we want t to be smaller than n over 2, each round is composed of two parts. First phase, second phase. The first phase, we can call it the filtering phase. Why? Each process sends a value to all the others. This means that we can have as many values as the number of processes. Okay? The goal, the aim of this first phase is to shift from up to n values to at most one value, or perhaps 0. If we reach exactly 1, we are sure to terminate, but it could be 1 or 0. If it's 1, we decide. If it's 0, we'll execute another round. So the first phase, each process broadcasts its value to all the others. So recall that we are in crash. We have no Byzantine processes. I broadcast my value and I wait for values. We are not in synchronous system. This means that while waiting, 1 response, 2 responses, 3 responses, can I wait for n messages? No, because if we have one crash, I will be stuck. As I have no mean to know whether the last one is alive or not, all I can do is to wait and wait forever if he has crashed. And if I stop waiting, perhaps he is still alive, but the message is slow, or the process is slow. So what I can do is to wait for n minus t. N minus t, I'm sure that in the worst case, I will receive n minus t. Okay? So I wait for n minus t values. And then I consider all these values. If at least n minus t values are the same value, I keep it. If I see that there are different values, there's no value that exceeds this threshold, I use a default value bottom. What does this mean? After the first round, either I have one value v, or I keep no value. This means the bottom. Okay, because bottom is value I cannot decide and that I cannot propose. It's default value just for the protocol. Now, after the first phase, if we consider two processes, can I keep a value v and Piotr keep value v prime? Is it possible? No, because of the properties of the quorums. Okay? As t is smaller than n over 2, and if the value I keep, I see it at least n minus t times, if I see my value n minus t times and he sees his value n minus t times, necessarily there's one value in common. Okay? This means it is, if I keep value, he keeps a value, this value is the same. Yes, for the first round, the estimate is the value I propose. Huh? Yeah, V. Okay? My estimate means that the value I propose to the consensus. And then I weight n minus t values. If I see a value at least n minus t times, I keep it. If I keep value, he keeps a value, we are sure that it's the same value. Or perhaps no one keeps a value. This means 0. Or perhaps I keep value and he did not keep value, so he will keep bottom.
Is my estimate, which I have sent, which I have broadcasted,
Yes.
is included in this n minus t? So I just wait for all others and add my own value to this list.
Yes, broadcast means to everybody, including myself.
So it means
and when
that
I say just to have a uniform writing of the algorithm, indeed I include myself in the values I receive.
And so it means that it may be v or it may be some other value, but if I am in minority, then I will take n minus t other values as v.
Among the set of values I received, I see if there's a value that exceeds a majority. No, that occurs at least a majority of times. If it's the case, I keep it. Otherwise, I keep the default value. So after the first phase, we are sure that in the system, in the whole system, we have either one value v, okay, or no value at all. So we enter the second phase, and we broadcast the value v or bottom if I have no value v. And I wait for n minus t values. And then we can possibly decide in which situation. If I see n minus t times the value v, I decide v. If I see at least t plus 1 values v, I adopt v. Well, what means I adopt v? This means for the next round, this is the value I will use as estimate. Okay? And if I'm not here, I pick any value I received at the first phase and I start a new round. Are you convinced that these three situations are safe? So, whatever is the process, yes, indeed, each process will send a value V or bottom. All processes that send V send the same V. You agree? This is the first phase. So, if I receive at least n minus t values V, n minus t, this means that any other process will receive there's a mistake. Not at least t plus 1. At least 1, not t plus 1. It's 1. At least 1 here. It's not t plus 1, it's 1. 1, not t plus 1. Yes, 1. It's 1. Because if I see n minus t values V, I am sure that any other process will see V at least one time. Do you agree? Because of the quorums. This is what I said. It is quorum based. Do you agree that if one process decides, if one process executes line 1, for sure all the other processes see V at least one time? Is it okay for everybody? Because of the quorums, they intersect. We cannot have two quorums that do not intersect. Okay? And this is not t plus 1, it is 1. Okay? And here, if one process decides, all the other processes will execute either case 1 or case 2. They cannot execute case 3. It's impossible. Okay? Either case 1 or case 2. And in this case, if one process decides, all the others will adopt value V, or they decide V. No. So, okay, let us consider this. This is an array. Each, here for example, is value proposed by process V0. This is P1, P2, and so on. Okay? Assume I have received a majority, all those values are equal to V. Okay? And here I can have anything. So if I receive a majority of V's, I keep V at the first phase. And all the other processes, either they see a majority of V's, they keep V, or they see something else, for example, V prime here, or W, or so on, and they will keep the W. Okay? If you do not see the same value a majority of times, you keep bottom. This means that at the second phase, the processes can only propose V and bottom. or they all propose V, or either they all propose V, they all propose bottom, or some propose V and other propose bottom. These are the three possible situations. Now, if I saw at least a majority of V's, okay, the other values, it could be a mixture of V and bottom. Perhaps all V's, perhaps all bottoms, perhaps a mixture of V and bottom. It's okay? If I see a majority of V's, I decide V. And any other process, because it's a majority, any other process will see at least one value V. V plus possibly the bottoms. As bottom is not proposed value, the process will keep V. So if one process decides V, we are sure that all processes that have not crashed, either they decide V or they adopt V. And then no one will execute case 3. And then at the second round, all processes will propose V. Okay? If they all propose V, all processes will keep V at the first phase of the second round. If they all keep V, they will all broadcast V, and they will all see at least N minus T V's, and all will decide. This means that with this protocol, if one process decides V, all correct processes will decide V at the latest in the round after, or perhaps in the same round. Okay? So it is safe. And more than this, if one decides, they all decide. Now, what is possible is that what we can prove is that case 1 and case 3 are exclusive. We cannot have, during the same round, one process that executes case 1 and another one that executes case 3. We can have processes in those two situations or in those two situations. And if we go back to what Eli Gafni presented yesterday afternoon, we still have this situation. If you are here, you are sure that all the others are either here or here. So you can decide. If you are here, you know that no one has decided. But if you are here, you do not know if there is someone here or someone here. And in a conservative way, you need to keep the value. Okay? But with this protocol, we are not sure that it will terminate. Because in the worst case, what you can say, if we replace any received value by, say, 0, are we sure to terminate? No. Because the adversary can slow messages such that at least few processes execute this case and they keep value different from 0. Okay? And then we will start again around with processes that propose 0 and others that propose another value, V. So, yes? Yes. Yes, because this is what is weird with asynchronous systems with failures. The worst case is not when you have failures. You know what is the worst case? When you expect failures, but actually no failures occurs. This is the worst case. Do you see why? If, for example, here, the maximal number of faults is t, and if they have all crashed, if I wait for n minus t messages, and he waits for n minus t messages, what will happen? We'll get the same set of messages. If we get the same set of messages, we will make the same decision. Okay? So the more faults actually occur, better it's for us. And the worst case is when we expect many faults and actually no fault occurs. This is the worst case, because you can have the maximal divergence between what two correct processes can see. Is it clear for everybody? So, yes, this construction is usually called an adopt-commit construction. And you have the same in message passing. So the properties of this this protocol is that if all processes start consensus with the same value, they will decide. Whatever is the number of faults, whatever is the synchrony, and so on. They always decide if they all propose the same value. And also, if one process decides, all the others that are live will decide. And as I said, this is a safe algorithm because we always preserve agreement and validity, but it may never terminate. What we can do is to replace the loop forever, because I put here, yes, repeat forever until I decide. I can replace it by execute 5 times. And after 5 times, 5 rounds, if no decision is made, I decide the minimal value I've ever seen. Here, we will have termination, we will have validity, but we may lose agreement. Because of FLP, we cannot ensure the 3 properties, we can only ensure 2. Now, this algorithm can be used to have a randomized solution. The first randomized consensus protocol is due to Ben-Or and Rabin. It is for binary consensus only. Only 0 and 1 can be proposed. But we need to change the definition of the problem. We do not say that every correct process terminates. We say that correct processes eventually decide with probability 1. The probability 1 does not mean that you are going to decide. It's like flipping a coin. I will tell you, as soon as you flip, for example, such value, you stop. You may never stop if you flip always the other face. And for randomization, we need to use random coins, either local coins or common coins. We'll say something about later. Now, the randomized algorithms is very easy to obtain. Just change this part of the protocol in red by the new one, and it works. Yes? You flip a coin? This is the question I wanted to ask. Can you say that this protocol preserves validity? Are you sure to decide always a proposed value? This is what I said, that it's only for binary case. Do you agree that it works for binary? Because if all processes propose 0, you need to decide 0. But what I said just before, if all correct processes propose the same value, they all decide this value. This means if they all propose 0, they will all decide 0 at the first round. If they all propose 1, they will all decide 1 at the end of the first round. Is it okay? If we execute case 3, this means that at least one process proposed bottom. If you propose bottom, what does it mean? This means that you have seen zeros, at least 1 0, and at least one value 1. And if you have seen at least 1 0 and one value 1, this means that you can decide any of the two. Both are valid. So if you flip a coin, 0 is valid and 1 is valid. This is why it works only for binary consensus. And it works. Why it works? If one assume that one process executes case 1, we said that in this case, all the others will decide at least the round after. So assume that no one executes case 1. Okay? Now, assume that all processes execute line 2. What will happen? They all keep V, and the next round they will all decide V. So it's okay. Now assume that they all execute case 3. In this case, they will all flip coins. And there's a non-null probability that they will all get the same value. So there is a non-null probability that they terminate. If they use local coins, the probability is 1 over 2 to the n to flip the same coin. Do you agree? So there is a probability non-null that all the processes flip the same value and they will all terminate. And if you have a mixture between 2 and 3, all those that execute line 2 will adopt the same value. And all the others will flip a coin. And similarly, there is non-null probability that they get all the same value, and this value is the same as the one that is kept. And you will terminate. Is it okay? So it works. Now the question, is it preferable to use a local coin or common coin? It's not an easy question. Yes. Yes?
Why do we need a coin at all? Why don't just pick 0 in this case? Why do we need a coin at all? Why don't we just pick 0, pick a default value in this case?
This is what I said just before.
Oh,
because if you put here adopt default value 0, for example, what will happen? If you execute case 3, this means that the processes do not agree on the initial value. Okay? If they do not agree, what the adversary can do is to have a message schedule such that half of the processes execute case 2 and keep 1, and the others execute line 3 and choose 0. By having a random value, whatever the adversary does, there is a non-null probability that we do the same. This is why it works. Now the question is it preferable to have local coins or common coins? Local coins. Why? I think it's the opposite. Because if it's common coin, all the processes that execute line 3 will flip the same coin. So what is the probability to terminate after 1 round in the worst case? Because the adversary can have a message schedule such that half of the processes go here and half of the processes go there. 50%. This means that you have 50% chance to finish after 1 round. And in expectation, the algorithm will terminate in 2 rounds. If you have a common coin. The common coin means that if I flip a coin and you flip a coin at the same round, you will get the same value, the same random value. It seems to, but it's not the case, because you miss something. If you flip 0 and we all propose 1, it's not valid. Yes? Uniformly random among what? Yes, you can do it, but it will not necessarily work. What you need to do is to have a mechanism aside that implements what we call the reliable broadcast. Because with the reliable broadcast, you are sure that if one correct process gets a value, all the other correct processes will eventually get this value. And in this case, you are sure that eventually, in fine, all the processes will see the same set of values. And here, it's okay, it will work. And you have protocols that work like this for randomized protocols for multi-valued consensus. It works. Now, the question is, if we use local coins, what is the number of rounds in expectation? It's not 2. It's finite, yes. In expectation, it's finite, but it is 1, 2, 10, 11, n, square n. No, in the worst case, it's exponential. 2 to the n. Because if I flip a coin, he flips a coin, and these are local coins, they are independent. And to be sure to terminate, we need all to flip the same coin. As we are n, we need 2 to the n. So do you prefer local coins or common coins? It's not evident, because there's a very important property for the coin, is to be unpredictable. Because if you can predict the value of the coin, what will happen? Exactly. The adversary knows that for the next round, the coin flip will be 0. So he will do its best such that all the processes that execute case 2 will keep value 1. And then you will not terminate. And each time it knows the next coin flip, it will make the part of the processes execute case 2 with the other value. The advantage of this means that you need to have an adversary that cannot do all what it wants with the message schedule. Okay? If you know that the adversary cannot manipulate the schedule of messages, the pattern of messages, you can use a common coin. For example, you use a random generator with same seed, and it works. Now, if your adversary is strong enough to be able to play with time schedule of messages, you need to use local coins. Here you see the connection between the adversary and the protocol you get. Okay? So, exercise 1. I was waiting question that you have not asked. Why 2 phases? Can I do it in 1 phase? I will divide by 2 the time execution of the protocol. You can try by skipping those lines, the 3 first lines. You execute directly this. Those 3 lines. Broadcast my estimate, wait for n-20 values, and they execute this. It does not work. Yes, we need to distinguish them. Indeed, in the message, indeed, you need to send, when I say broadcast my estimate, in the message you put your ID, comma, number of the round, and value. First phase, yes, we need to give all the information. Do you agree that I cannot do it in 1 phase? Because the problem with this is that I need to decide directly here. And the problem is that there is majority of V's. Assume that majority of processes propose V and minority propose V prime. I see, and this is, okay? I saw this. N minus T values V. And I decide V, okay? Piotr will see this N minus T. What do you want him to do? As I decided V, he needs to adopt V to have safety. Is it okay? But he received how many V's? Perhaps only 1. And many V primes. How can we know if he needs to keep V or V prime? No way. So the exercise says it's not question. it's an affirmation. Complete the protocol below and give the bound on the ratio n over t. Because for some ratios, it will work. Okay? Just find it. Perhaps n over 2, n over 2.5, n over 3, n over 5, n over 6.5, and so on. Just find it. The question 2, I can't remember. Is it possible to design protocol with one message exchange per round and t smaller than n over 2? It seems contradictory with what I have just said. No, but you need to design another protocol, not this one. You can design another protocol which works with t smaller than n over 2, but needs that the coin be common. Since it does not work if the coin is not common. So if I say the coin is common, and t is smaller than over 2, you can design protocol. Try to find it. Now, what we have seen is for crash failures. How about Byzantine failures? It's much harder. Indeed, this is variant of a protocol called Berman-Gares protocol, designed in 1995 for t smaller than n over 5. It's exactly the same protocol. Exactly the same. It is magic. Contrarily to what we saw in synchronous system, here it's exactly the same protocol. The only things that have changed are those. The n minus t is the same, only those are different. Can you understand why it is n minus 2t and not n minus t? But this does not, it was also the case for the first protocol, for the protocol we have just seen for crash failures. And it was not n minus 2t, it was n minus t. Yes, yeah, exactly. For what I say, he is right. For what I said for the first protocol, I cannot wait for more than n minus t. Even though there's no actual crash, I cannot wait for more than n minus t because I am not sure if we have crashes or not. All what I can do is to wait for n minus t. As soon as I have received n minus t, I need to stop waiting. But the adversary is he's evil. What he will do, he will slow down the messages of t-correct processes, okay, such that in the first n minus t, you receive the t-Byzantine processes. So the t you missed are correct, and you receive t values from Byzantine processes. And as Byzantine processes can do what they want, the meaningful values are at most n minus 2t in the worst case. And as I have to consider the worst case to be safe, I cannot do better than this. Okay? Now, I have presented the crash, the tolerant version, to see the spirit of the algorithm. such that it's easier to understand the Byzantine one. What's the role of the first phase? The role of the first phase is a filter from up to n values to 1 or 0. This is what we saw here. If I do not use the filter, I am not able to adopt a value. If I decide V, I do not know which value to adopt. If I have one value and bottom, as bottom cannot be adopted, as soon as I see one V, I can adopt it. Okay? So here, if I broadcast my estimate, I wait for n minus t values, and if I see a value n minus 2t times, am I sure that at most one value can pass the filter? This is what we will see here. Pi waits for n minus 2t, n minus t values. Yes. Oh, yes. Okay, so he missed, Pi missed t values. And the t he missed are correct processes. Now, he received, and here, of course, the t Byzantine processes sent V to Pi. This is the worst case. Do you agree that it's the worst case? In such situation, Pi sees n minus 1t here and 2t here. Are you sure that the number, do you agree that the number of V values Pi will see is exactly n minus 2t? Okay? So it will keep the value V. The question is it possible that another correct process keeps a value different from V? It's always a quorum problem. So let us consider another process PG that is correct in the same scenario. What we are going to do, what the adversary is going to do, is to do its best to give to PJ as many as possible values different from V. So, instead of missing those values, the adversary will make PJ miss those values. This means that PJ will miss V values. And then, in the worst case, the values that Pi has missed are exactly the value sent by the Byzantine processes. The same. And the Byzantine processes, with their duplicity, they sent V to Pi and W to Pj. This means that in the worst case, if a correct process sees n minus 2t values V, another correct process can see at most 3t values different from V. Okay? And as t is smaller than n over 5, 3t is smaller than n minus 2t. This means that Pj cannot keep V because it does not appear enough, but it can also not keep W because of this. So Pj will keep what? Bottom. So now you see why t need to be smaller than n over 5. So after the first phase, we are sure that in the system we have one valid value at most, and possibly bottom. And then for the same reason, I broadcast V or bottom, and I need to wait for n minus t values. If I see at least n minus 2t same values V, I decide V. For the same reason, I cannot put here n minus t because of the Byzantine processes. And if I see at least t plus 1 values, in the other one it was 1 because we had no Byzantine. Here it is at least t plus 1. Here I adopt V. Why t plus 1? Exactly. Because if it's less than t plus 1, I can adopt the value championed by Byzantine processes. As it is t plus 1, it has the value V I will adopt here has been proposed by at least one correct process. And correct processes only send valid values. Okay? Now the question is, if PI executes case 1, to have safety, we need to ensure that all other processes will at least execute case 2. And for this, I have also a scenario here. We have PI that sees n minus t values V. Okay? So PI decides V. What is the worst scenario? The worst scenario is when part of the V's has been sent by Byzantine processes, such that for PI they send V, and for PJ they send bottom. Okay? If they send a value other than bottom, they will be detected as Byzantine. So they are obliged to send bottom. And similarly to what I said before, the maximum number of bottoms we see is 3t. So what is the number of V's that PJ is obliged to see? N minus t, 2t, 3t, 4t. This means that the number of V's that PJ is sure to see is n minus 4t. And n minus 4t is bigger than t because t is smaller than n over 5. So we are sure that if one process decides here, the other correct processes, either they decide also or they execute line 2. And if they all execute line 2 or 1, at the next round, everybody will terminate. It is quite surprising why in synchronous system the Byzantine algorithm is much more complicated than the one for crash failures. And here, it's mainly the same algorithm. However, there's a question that you should have asked. Why t is it smaller than n over 5? What's the bound? The bound is n over 3 for synchronous system. The question is, what is the bound for asynchronous system? I can say it, it's the same. What does this mean? This algorithm does not have the optimal resiliency. Okay? This means this protocol is not optimal because it tolerates a small number of Byzantine failures. The question is it possible to have a protocol that tolerates t smaller than n over 3? And the response is yes. This is what I have explained. It's the same for termination. Yes. And exercise 2 is similar to exercise 1, but for the Byzantine. Is it possible to have one protocol in one phase per round, but you need to find the parameters? Is it t smaller than n over 10? Because the original protocol by Benor for Byzantine has been proposed in 1993, I think, or 1992. No, 1982 or 83, I can't remember, was for t smaller than n over 10. The question is t smaller than n over 10, n over 9, n over 12, n over 6, 16? You just have to find it. It's not easy. But you need to do something like this to find it. A protocol for t smaller than n over 3. It's hard because such protocol should prevent duplicity of Byzantine processes. Means that the Byzantine process may send, you can see that all scenarios I built here, you see the Byzantine process, they send different values to different processes. Or they can even send false values to everybody. So we need to prevent this. How? We have tools for this. For example, use the confirmation mechanism that has been, but this needs a cubic number of messages and not quadratic. Use of cryptography instead of oral messages. What does this mean? For example, I receive a message from Piotr and I say, Piotr told me that his value is 5. Will you believe me? I can be a liar. What we can do is to use cryptography. For example, when he does not say an oral message, he will send me a message that he signed. So I see the message and I tell you, Piotr told me that his value is 5. And if you want to believe me, here's his message. But we need to sign it. Okay, here we cannot, if we relay a message, we cannot lie. But it needs a PKI infrastructure. Now, for the consistent broadcast, you have many broadcast primitives to avoid duplicity and so on, and they have been mainly proposed by Bracha, Twegg, and Srikant in few papers in the mid-80s. You have the no duplicity broadcast, the reliable broadcast, the authenticated broadcast, and so on. And all of these assume that t is smaller than n over 3. They proved that no one of these can be implemented if we do not have this. It's important. How does it work? The no duplicity broadcast. It's a broadcast primitive such that if I deliver a message from a correct process, this means that this process has rarely broadcast this message. This is the validity. I will not deliver spurious messages. The most important is no duplicity. This means that two correct processes will not deliver different messages from the same process, even if it's Byzantine. And the third one is that if the sender is correct, all correct processes will deliver its message. Here's the implementation. When I want to broadcast a message with this primitive, I just have to use the basic unreliable broadcast. I send a message. Then I send init with my identity and my value. And each process that receives my message for the first time, he needs to echo the message. This means that he will send it to everybody. And then it's easy. If I receive a number of echoes that is greater, that is at least majority, I deliver the message. Do you agree that we cannot have duplicity with this? Because you can check that. It is always, as Leslie Lamport said it, a matter of quorums. You consider any two quorums of size n plus t over 2, they intersect at least in one correct process. This means that if I deliver a message, it's because I saw n plus t over 2 copies of this message. And if you also deliver a message, this means we received a copy, each of us, from at least one correct process. So it's the same copy. This means that if I deliver a message, you deliver a message, we deliver the same message. So the difference is that with this, we need square n to the 2 messages for one broadcast instead of n messages. So it's costly. So if t is smaller than n over 3, two sets of at least n plus t over 2 distinct processes have at least one process in common. One correct process in common. One message broadcast needs square n messages. As our protocol is symmetric, all the processes broadcast messages. This means that if each broadcast needs square n messages, each round needs a cubic number of messages. So it is quite costly. And then there is a protocol that has been proposed, I think, in 85 or 86, 1985 or 1986, that uses no duplicity, as we saw it, and also cryptography to sign messages. And with this, we have a protocol for t smaller than n over 3. So it has optimal resiliency, but it uses cryptography and a cubic number of messages per round. Here's the protocol. It is quite simple. I have replaced the basic broadcast by no duplicity broadcast. And now we are sure that if I deliver a message from a Byzantine process and he delivers a message from a Byzantine process, we are sure that it's the same. Okay? And with this, the protocol is simple. Each correct process sends its estimate with the proofs. What's the proofs? What I said in the previous protocol is that if I receive t plus 1 messages, just before, here, before going to the next round, I need to execute at least this or this or this. At least t plus 1 value is equal to v. Indeed, what I'm going to do, not only I adopt v, but to v I will attach the set of messages I have received. As the messages are signed, the receiver of the message I will send can check that if I kept v, it's because I received the right set of messages. Okay? These are the proofs. What are the proofs? It's the set of processes of messages I received in the previous round. Signed messages. I wait for n minus t values, and then if at least the majority of values is equal to the same value v, I keep v. Otherwise, I keep the bottom. And then I execute second phase, and if all values I received are equal to v, I decide v. Here we cannot have spurious messages because we need to send the proofs. So if a Byzantine process wants to lie, it cannot lie. Because if it says I send bottom, it needs to show the proofs, the signed messages that pushed him to select bottom. Okay? Yes? Yes. This is what I'm going to say later. This is just to show that this is a solution with this smaller than n over 3, and it works. And it's the same kind of algorithms. But indeed, it uses cryptography. And signing messages, checking signed messages is very costly, very, very costly. Okay? And the number of messages for the protocol is cubic. This means that such protocol is very costly in terms of computation time and in terms of the number of messages. Yep. Indeed, this is what I said in the slide before. Needs an assumption on the computability power of the adversary, and also we need to use a PKI, a PKI infrastructure. It is important, and this is very costly. I know I have other things to say, but anyway. So we have dozens of protocols. Either they are not optimal in terms of resiliency, or they need the use of cryptography that is very costly, or they need a cubic number of messages. But we had no proof that those are necessary until 2014, where a solution has been proposed that assumes t smaller than n over 3, uses no cryptography, and with quadratic number of messages. Yes, it appeared in PODC 2014. I can talk about authenticated broadcast. It's also a broadcast that has been proposed by Srikant and Twegg in 1987. It allows to replace cryptography by this broadcast that needs a cubic number of messages, but that do not need cryptography. So this protocol can replace directly, this is the protocol. It can be replaced directly in the algorithm we saw before to replace the signatures. Now I have finished the randomized part, and for this part, we fall into the Paxos-like algorithms. So I will not, like Paxos, PBFT, and so on, and I will not present this. What's this? What is it doing here? I don't know. Yes. This is the very first algorithm we saw. The question is, and it's the third exercise, eventual synchrony. If consider the case where the transfer delays of messages are bounded. This means that you know that no message delay can exceed some bound, but we do not know the bound. Is it possible to modify this algorithm such that it becomes safe and live? It's not very difficult. Second, how about if the message transfer delays will be eventually bounded? They are not bounded, but in the future they will become bounded, but I do not know when. And you have the PBFT protocols. I think many of these are of the family of Paxos. And I think you will have talks about this. So just to say that there's connection with this, what I presented is symmetric protocols, and those are asymmetric protocols. How about blockchains? Indeed, blockchains are tightly related to consensus. You can say that consensus is somehow the engine inside blockchain. But blockchain does more than consensus. But the engine, the agreement service of the blockchain is weaker than consensus. And you will have a whole talk on it by Maurice, no? So you can see that all the talks are connected to each other. And that's it. We are done. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the talk, first of all. So I was wondering, for the last exercise, you basically gave the two models of partial synchrony, if I see that correctly. So maybe we should clarify for everyone that the second model means that it's eventually bounded, but then the processes are allowed to assume that they do know the delay, right?
Here?
The second one.
Bound,
second one.
Yes.
So in the first case, yeah, okay, you explain. But I think it's not clear enough in the statement for people who do not know this model.
For the first one, the delays are bounded since the beginning, except that the processes do not know the bound. But for the second one, at the beginning, the transfer delays are not bounded. They will be bounded in future. And eventually they will be bounded, but we do not know when. We do not know the bound, and we do not know when they will become bounded. So it seems it is less strong than this one. It looks. Yeah, no, it is. Yes. We do not know the bound. No, we do not know the bound, and we do not know when. Yes.
Can you open slide about safe crash tolerant consensus? Slide 53, please. It's another here. Safe crash tolerant.
Yes, indeed. I added some slides compared to what is on site. I need to send it to Sofia to put the new slides.
Safe crash tolerant consensus.
This one before?
Yes. Okay, let it be randomized one. Algorithm, please. Safe crash tolerant. Oh, yes, this one. Assume one process is at phase 2, case 2, yes? That means that somebody in the phase 1 saw n minus t values, yes? That means that we already have some kind of consensus, yes? I mean, when the process is sees n minus t values, he sees some kind of consensus.
No,
yes?
no. For example, here
Yes.
you have half plus 1
Yes.
the processes that propose V,
Yes.
and half, a little bit less, that propose V prime.
Yes.
I see all V's, but there's no consensus. The fact that I saw all V's does not mean that there's consensus. Means that according to my view of the system, this is what I said.
Yes, yes.
According to my view, there's consensus on V. But the other processes will not necessarily agree with my view of the system.
But you know, yes?
Yes, I'm wrong, yeah.
And some observer can agree with you. I mean, you see quorum, yes?
Yeah.
That means when other process in the case 2, yes, let's assume.
I broadcast V.
Yes, I broadcast V. Another process sees no quorum but some V's at case 2, yes? Case 2.
No. Do not confuse between phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay.
This is phase 1. I see
Yes.
only V's and I broadcast V.
Yes.
Another process sees a mixture of V and V prime.
And broadcast bottom.
Bottom. This
Yes.
means that when here, at this line, even if we have an omnipotent observer, he will see that all processes, either they broadcast V, the same V, or they broadcast bottom.
Okay. Then there is a second phase, yes?
Yes.
And some process see not n minus t, but some values v.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Why they adopt but don't decide v? Because if it sees some values, then the process can assume that.
Yeah. Here we are. This is phase 2.
Yes.
This is half. I'm here.
Yes.
I see some values V, 5
Yes.
or 6 values V.
Yes. And
yes.
and bottoms.
Yes, and bottoms. And I decide V.
Yes.
You want me to decide V?
Yes.
Okay. And I decide V. Another process can see this
Yes.
bottom and only bottom. What will he do?
He can't.
He has no way to know that there's a process that has decided V. This is why we decide V only if we see at least a majority of V, because we know that any other process will see at least one V. And thus, it can keep it. I think that for me, there are few papers I would have been the author of those papers. And this paper of Benoit, I would prefer to be the author of the paper, but it's not the case. Unfortunately, I'm not the author.
I'm a little bit curious about possible ways to have something in between safe and like partially safe algorithms. So I'll try to explain what I mean. So if we have an algorithm which works for some t, I don't know, it may be n divided by 3 or some other, but some t, and we have like production system, and we have some adversary have compromised T or less machines, then we are safe if our algorithm is implemented correctly. But is it possible to design an algorithm which probably will not work correctly if the hacker compromises more than T, but still will give us some hint that something is wrong? We cannot work correctly, but we can detect that the system is compromised, that hacker has hacked more than T machines.
Indeed, I think there's a big part of distributed computing that started dealing with abortable objects, I think, no? Is it connected? It means that you know that you cannot do something. What you do is to stop with a given value, okay?
Yeah. Well, there is also a branch which is called accountability. So sometimes you cannot tolerate failures, but you can detect them.
Yes.
A posteriori. So
Yes,
something
exactly.
happened and you know that this guy misbehaved. So this is yet another area. But indeed, there are some recent,
It's
especially
another area of distributed
in the
computing.
context of blockchains, this became
Yes.
viable, this kind of things. Yeah.
Could you describe a little bit the procedure of initiation of round of consensus? That's, I'm interested in the situation when we have split of our processes such that the first part is n minus t, and the second part is started the first round but do not respond to this part.
Yes.
And on the second round, all the processes will send the same value and they will satisfy the first case. And they will never receive the messages from the second part, which occurs after
Indeed,
split.
You can split as you want. The adversary can block part of the messages or part of the processes and so on. But as we use quorums, as Lycée Lamport said it, the most important word is quorum. This means that as soon as we have a quorum, we are safe. This means that as soon as the quorum is not reached, I will wait. And eventually I will receive the messages. Because I know that if I wait for n minus t, there are at least n minus t live processes, which means that I can wait and I will not stuck. Okay? So as soon as we have quorums, and if the quorums are correctly defined, I'm sure that they are alive. I will not be blocked forever. And moreover, if we have quorums, at least there's one quorum that is live. So some of the processes can be blocked during some time, but there's another part that cannot be blocked. And safety means that the ones that are not blocked will decide, and when the other part is unlocked, necessarily they will make the same decision, necessarily. So this is a matter of correction, and the protocol is correct. This means it will work. It cannot be blocked.
What about progress guarantees in case of non-binary consensus? What if all processes pick different numbers and all processes will do third step infinitely often?
In Byzantine, with Byzantine consensus?
In crash tolerant.
Yes, they can pick different values.
Why?
This protocol, you are not guaranteed to terminate. You can never terminate with this one.
So no guarantees, yes?
Yes, there's no guarantee, otherwise FLP is not correct.
But
FLP told you that as this algorithm is safe, for sure it cannot be alive. This means that does not mean that it never terminates. It means that it may terminate in mainly all situations, mainly, but you can find at least one execution where it never terminates. This is the meaning of FLP. Okay. This means that among the billions of possible executions, there's one, at least one that never terminates. but it will perhaps never occur, but it does exist.
And there is a way to avoid this bad case.
Yeah.
But if space of possible number will very large. Okay, understand.
Earlier, earlier you said that we cannot simulate. Sorry, we considered a few algorithms that work with when the domain is binary, and earlier you said that we cannot simply simulate larger domains. So my question is, do I understand correctly that binary consensus does not lead to universality?
No. Indeed, it has been proved for Byzantine consensus. The first paper was by Cohen and Turpin that proved that Byzantine consensus is equivalent to multi-valued binary consensus. This means that they have the same power, and for crash failure, it has been done in 2001, I think. We are sure that if you give me a black box that solves binary consensus, I can solve multi-valued consensus.
But when it comes to Byzantine failures, there is a case with larger domains that we cannot return bottom, that we cannot return a value. So I'm a bit confused.
No.
I mean, earlier.
The two are equivalent in terms of computability, they're the same. This means you can use one as black box and then build the other both in crash failure model and Byzantine failure model.
All right, thank you.
Could you clarify on this slide about termination? I mean, how can one process decide that it should terminate this algorithm? Because when someone decides, it doesn't mean it terminates, yes?
This is a very good question. Indeed, to have a protocol that is simple to write, indeed, there's what we call a quiescent algorithm. This means that here, even if you decide, you carry on playing and executing the algorithm for not blocking the others. What you can do here is that when you want to decide, what you need to do is to broadcast the decision value to everybody in a message that says, I decide V, and then you decide. This means that, and now you no more play. As you no more play, the others can be stuck, but there's no problem, because if you decided, this means that you have broadcast the message to everybody, and then everybody will receive it, and every process needs to have a task aside that says that if I receive a message, I decided V, you decide V. If you crash, this means that you are not mandatory for the execution, you are a crash process, so you cannot stack the execution. If you are correct, they will receive the message and they will stop. But for the convenience, for having a clear algorithm, I didn't put it. But it's a very good question.